Uh, Hold on.
You better be a famous photographer.
No.
You can take that shade off.
Well, I don't know, that might have
Boy, are you gonna have all this light on me?
to. Is it too bright? It might be too bright. No, it actually looks pretty.
Thank you.
Okay.
Of course, I wanted to be a movie star, but my father wouldn't let me.
Okay. What year were you born?
Pardon me?
What year were you born?
I was born. You have to speak up louder.
Okay.
19.
Wait, say I was born.
I was born May 7th, 1933,
Okay.
which makes me 79 in May.
I don't know what to say.
Well, what are you supposed to know?
It's just like a family project.
Well, I guess I just wanted to tell you about growing up in Hollywood was quite wonderful because in 1940 we were very happy. The whole block of kids would, in the summertime or even in the wintertime, on Wednesday evening they had a movie that was 9 cents if you were under 25 or 20, which all of us were. And we used to see a movie twice a week. And that theater was open on the matinee for Saturday, and Wednesday night they'd have an early showing. So it was a lot of fun growing up in Hollywood. When in the 40s, my girlfriend and I, Lila, went to Hollywood quite frequently, and we took the bus which was Adams Boulevard to La Brea Boulevard, La Brea Boulevard to Sunset Boulevard, and everybody knows where Sunset Boulevard is. And we used to go to the radio shows. Let's see, I was 11, so that 1943. That was during the war, but we still went on the bus and we went to the radio shows, which there wasn't much. There was TV at that time, but very few people could afford it. So we saw the hit parade, which is in 1943 and 44, and 45, I believe. It was Andy Russell, who you probably never heard of. And then, of course, you probably heard of Frank Sinatra. And Frank Sinatra was on the hit parade later on from 44 to 45 and beyond that, but I'm not quite sure. But it was a lot of fun. One time, my girlfriend and I took that trip to Hollywood, and we had $1 each extra besides our 9 cents to get on the bus, and we went to the Brown Derby thinking we would eat lunch. Much to our surprise.
Tell her what the Brown Derby is.
Pardon me?
What's the Brown Derby?
What is the Brown
Oh,
Derby?
the Brown Derby was the most famous restaurant in Hollywood. And the Brown Derby was hoping when you go there to see movie stars, but unfortunately my girlfriend and I didn't see any movie stars, and you couldn't eat lunch for $1. You could only have a Coke. And that was in 1943 or 44, right around that time. I was born in the Depression, and my father used to tell us stories about how he didn't have a job and how he sold oranges and apples on Wilshire Boulevard, which is a very, very famous boulevard in Los Angeles.
Where did he get the apples?
And they would get the apples and the oranges wherever they could. People that had orchards that would sell them to them for a dime, maybe less, and they that's how he made a living in the early 30s. And then I came along in 1933. He still sold oranges and apples and flowers on the street. When my sister was born in 1937, my father heard that you could make a lot of money if you got into the motion picture industry, which he tried many times to do, but couldn't get in. So he, at that time, was working for a florist, and he sold flowers on Melrose Boulevard in Los Angeles and Wilshire Boulevard. And what he did was one day he went to the gate at one of the motion picture industries. I think it was Warner Brothers, and he he said that he had a huge bouquet, which he did in his arms. He had a huge bouquet for the executive, whoever was the executive at that time at Warner Brothers.
Mr. Warner. It was for
Mr. Warner. Mr. Warner, in 1937, they called the office and they said, well, let him come into the gate, I'll see him. So Mr. Warner accepted the flowers personally and said to my dad, how did you get past the gate? He said, well, I really need a job, and this was the only way that I could get in to see you. And Mr. Warner said, if you have guts enough to get past the gate and come in that way, then you deserve a job. And he said, well, what can you do? He said, my dad said I can do anything. And he got hired as what they call an electrician, not really an electrician, but in the old days they had very large cameras, and then they had the lights, huge lights, and my dad used to work the lights, told us many stories about working the lights on the movie stars, and the movie stars used to always complain that it was too hot. But that's the way they did it in the 30s.
Nothing. She's just being weird.
I was very impressed when I was a young kid, and always asked my dad if I could go see some of the movie stars. Sometimes they would be a closed set, so you couldn't go. But on several occasions, I got to see several movie stars. And my dad knew how much I love movie stars, and he brought home pictures. And I do have some pictures still. I had many, many more, but I don't know what happened to them. Moving back and forth quite a bit in the last 25, 40 years. Anyway, I got to be on the set with Danny Kaye, and I have a picture of Danny Kaye. He was my absolute favorite. He sang, he danced, he was a comedian, he was a wonderful man, and my dad really liked him also, worked with him a couple times. And I can remember the movie. It was called Up in Arms, with Vera Ellen, Danny Kaye, and I don't remember who else. But I got to meet him, and he also, we brought my little brother, who was probably a year and a half old, and he picked my brother up and held him up, and he told my dad, this kid should be in the movies. But of course my dad didn't like it any of us to be in the movies. It was a rough life, which he was right.